Welcome everybody to the OMG Official Business Architecture Special Interest Group web session that we today have with myself, Professor Mark van Roosing, who is a chair and co-chair of the Business Architecture Special Interest Group in OMG. We have the pleasure to have invited the speaker, Professor Dr. Hans-Jürgen Scheruhn, who I have personally worked with through many years. I will allow myself to introduce very short Professor Scheruhn and just then hand over to him after I have done a little introduction around the subject and around the Global Universal Alliance and what has been done. As to Professor Scheruhn, I have a pleasure to have both not only an academic member presenting, but a real practitioner too, having started already in the late 80s working as a project manager in the software industry in Siemens, where he was project manager for Volkswagen, Edeka, Bosch Blaupunkt in multiple projects. He already started in 1994 as a professor in informatics and business in the University of Harz, in German said Hochschule Harz, Wernigerode. He, however, has had international aspects and focus, where he already in 2000 taught in Florida University, at the Florida Gulf Coast University, specifically around process management, where he is one of the specialists and in aspects of how it relates to business. He furthermore already was there at the university in 2001. He then taught at Sydney, Australia, at the University of Technology in Sydney, then in the business school in New Zealand, as well as between 2001 and 2010, he already taught at GISMA Business School. So we literally, in the MBA program, he already taught also in the MBA program at Granite School in Indiana. So we see him going from multiple universities, teaching. So he's both taught in the US, in Australia, in Germany, also in Cuba, in the MBI program. And we have also had the pleasure to do multiple sessions within that. So in other words, he's truly a specialist and an expert around business informatics, process management, information management. In this case, I've personally done with him, he's led in the Global University Alliance, which consists of about 450 universities and professors around the world. He has led the research around information management. We did lately a publication last year in Elsevier around business architecture from process modeling to information modeling. And in this case, we literally have the honor today where he talks about the subject, developing and applying the business architecture. So if we could go to the next slide. So in this case, some of the detailed subjects we will be discussing with Hans and Professor Scheruhn is from value chain modeling to process modeling and information modeling. How do you do this? This is therefore both a theoretical, conceptual walkthrough, as well as a practical step-by-step. Which objects do you need to interrelate? What are very important aspects within this? Hans, is there anything you want to add to this already?
No, thank you very much. From value chain modeling to process and information modeling is a good description of what we are going to do and what we're going to see today.
Yes. Before we go into the subject, we have some who do not know nothing about the Global University Alliance, so we are allowed to add very few slides into it. What is the Global University Alliance? This is already found. We are going over 11 years back. In 2004, we founded the Global University Alliance. In this case, it is a non-profit organization, an international consortium of universities, lecturers, professors, and our aim is to collaborate around academic research, analysis and development. In this case, what is it we analyze? Well, as all universities, we analyze patterns of what happens in real life, meaning in this case, industry would call that best practice studies and leading practice studies, and in sometimes obviously missing practices, which would be developed by a university consortium or by the understanding of what is missing, what could it look like, and then applied to practice. So in short, we actually align academic resources to do academic research around university curriculums, developing standards, community sharing, doing publications, as well as look at research concerns and questions that span around enterprise ontology, enterprise concepts, enterprise semantics, etc. If we go to the next slide, you will see that one of the focus areas of the Global University Alliance is to have a board. Why? Well, when you are over 450 universities around the world, it needs to have a very tight grip on what is it we do, how is it we want to study. In this case, myself, I'm a board chairman, and I'm very happy to have our co-chairman is Professor Simon Polvina. He's also the head of the Enterprise Semantic Research. Then we have Professor Scheruhn, who's very known. He's one of the founders, actually, and the father of business process management. He leads most of that research. Also, he's the main author of the co-publications we have done together in the Global University Alliance and OMG. In addition to that, we have John Sackman. He's very known in the world. I guess he needs no introduction. He's the father of enterprise architecture. Then Professor Maxim. He's from Russia, our colleagues. Our Professor Wim Lauria. He's the head of enterprise ontology and our colleague from Belgium. And then Professor Scheruhn, who's also part of the board member. He's the head of information management. And there you actually, that's the closed board that today leads the user groups and organizations and the coordinations. Since we with OMG, we work with ISO, we work with CEN, we work with NATO, we work with multiple organizations from very small organizations to very large corporates. So I think that's enough for a short introduction. If we go to the next slide, we have a little bit on the aspects of what is it we do. We try to do cutting edge research and development. This is both around business modeling standards, engineering standards, project management and implementation standards, process standards, architecture standards. And as a part of the architecture standards, we both coordinate with the US government on DODAF. Sackman, he's even in our board on the John Sackman framework, as well as TOGAF. I've personally participated on the TOGAF development, have also written the official paper on developing the profession of a business architect, both for IEEE, it's published, and TOGAF. In this case, that's a little bit of the background, what we do, and the connections. In the case anybody of you has any interest on it, you can look at the Global University Alliance page. If you are an academic member, you can join. Also, we have an OMG academic and research work group where you can also participate. If you are in organizations, you can participate in OMG in our BA Business Architecture Special Interest Group, where we will make sure to activate you within OMG of how to develop standards. So if we can go to the next slide, you will be seeing that the research we pursue is trying to look at subjects in business architecture such as business model, strategy, value modeling, business process management, service modeling, information management, and business transformation. And I know most of you who participate here already know while touching the subject of business architecture, it touches multiple subjects within the discipline of business modeling. Hence, this session that Professor Scheruhn has put together shares with us very good how it goes from the idea of business concepts into the subjects, which we see on the next slide, into the subjects both of services, processes, aspects of purpose and goal, meaning the motivation model. That would be in OMG also the BMM, business processes, the BPMN, as well as service modeling and value modeling, which is VDML. Let's look at next slide. One of the things we have had is the study in the Global University Alliance, where we have asked about 1,800 CEOs and close to 3,000 business leaders representing major industries and countries. We asked them, what is the current state of the enterprise architecture program? If you want to know more about the research, please visit www.globaluniversityalliance.net and just look under research for enterprise architecture. You will see there this is an international study done together with ISO, the standards also 42010, who does enterprise architecture, IEEE, John Sackman, NATO, and many other organizations around the world, obviously led by the University Alliance. So what we are looking at is from 0 to 100 who have implemented nearly all what they need to do, who has implemented a very large percentage, who has implemented a moderate amount, who has implemented only a small part of what they really needed, and who has not addressed it at all. So in the next slide, we see some of the answers that we would see. We have 19% who has not addressed at all business architecture aspects. If you look at infrastructure architecture, we have a much more higher penetration. So it's only about 15% in infrastructure who has not addressed it, or who has only addressed the small parts. In security architecture, it would be about 25% who has not addressed it, only small parts. It's 22 to application architecture, 31 to integration architecture, to information architecture. We are already talking much higher. We're talking 43% who have either not addressed it at all or have only implemented small parts. What is, however, was very surprising to us was 62% of all organizations we worked with said that they have either not addressed at all or have only implemented small parts or addressed small parts of the business architecture. This truly leads to some aspects of concern in terms of talking about architecture. If we're looking at the next slide, we will be seeing that the rating of the strategic importance, we asked them what is the most important. This was in terms of both executives and business leader. There, it's exactly the other way around. It could be argued that's because they already have infrastructure architecture or security architecture more in place. But that's truly not the case, because we see at CIO studies multiple that organizations focus an immense amount of work and focus on aspects of security architecture. Hence, we need to have still a high amount of business architecture focus within the organizations. It was surely identified to have the biggest penetrations and the biggest opportunity. In the next slide, as a matter of fact, we will see when we asked them, why was it that you focused so much on business architecture? What was the reasons for choosing the area? So the next slide shows us the business architecture in itself. The reasons for choosing them was 9 points. They said the reasons for rating it number 1 was they need a better link to strategy. which, by the way, also tells us business architecture must enable a better link to strategy. It must be able to fulfill the strategic business objectives, because that's what the executive said. Secondly, they said it should improve their competitiveness, thereby enable growth and cost potential. If we, however, looked at any existing solution in the market, had nothing specific for growth. They talked about in general about capabilities and this and that, which is all fine and good. But they had nothing really specifically around growth or cost potential. Most didn't even have any, neither maps, matrix or models, templates or artifacts to model neither cost nor growth. Then it was about link to business model. The only one that we saw this doing in the market today was aspects of VDML touching, where they actually touched and said, well, a value proposition and aspects of a strategy execution of activities would be linked to the business model. Then service model renewal, they answered, enabled business innovation and transformation, need to link to the critical success factors of the organization, meaning what is important of them, obviously their value drivers, then operational excellence, decision making it should enable, and the aspects of agile, how to make the organizations more agile, reacting to market trends and to changes in the market. So we truly saw that business architecture has become a strategic tool for the organizations to act and react to changing markets, to forces, and to link together to strategy, to create the competitiveness, to improve the business model, improve services, enable innovation and transformation. So, having laid this foundation, let's take a look at the next slide, where we will have defined what are some of the most common objects of business architecture. Because that's what we have asked Professor Scheruhn to share a little bit about. Professor Scheruhn is a specialist. He will also share a little bit about how he works with thousands of organizations and universities around the world, having defined literally a case study that students work hands-on how to create these, how the objects interrelate within the enterprise to enable business architecture modeling, thereby actually making this the biggest standard in the world. I realize that organizations would say, yeah, but I haven't heard of it. That's good and fair. It still makes it the most used in the world. But we will share that when we go through it a little bit more. If we see the next slide, the focus in this case will be specifically around the business layer, meaning we have asked Professor Scheruhn to say, how does this relate to value modeling, meaning aspects of purpose and goal? How does this impact the competencies of the business? How does it enable the services, the processes? How does it connect to it? What about the changing requirements? What about transformation and information? And how is it the application layer aspects, meaning the information aspects, are related to this whole business layer modeling? So when we are going to the next slide, I'm giving over to Professor Scheruhn, who will share with us a little bit about his idea of the concepts of what he will be going through from the top layer and how he will be using a case study, Global Bike Incorporated, to literally show this in a proof case of how to go step in step. So I welcome Professor Scheruhn and hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Mark. And I like to directly continue at this slide. So if we have a look at this 3 enterprise layer, 8 sub-layer enterprise views at the GBI, this is a demo company, Global Bike Incorporated, we first should try to find good answers for the question, what are the purpose What are the goals? Sustainable growth in this case. Where are the business competencies located? Global Bike Incorporated, this is our demo company. The business services are providing bicycles. The business processes are assigned to a supply chain. And when we look at the application layer, yellow or orange one, so the SAP Solution Manager comes into play, which is a very important IT management configuration tool, the SAP arena. And on the data layer, we see the enterprise data model. We get back to this nice view later on, but I would like to extend a little bit what Mark mentioned earlier. Even it's not so important. Most of the models exist in this arena, the technology layer. I would like to mention that the infrastructure for our SAP systems is supported by University Competence Center located in Germany, and at the Hochschule Harz, where we will be talking about a little bit, only the SAP graphical user interface is implemented. So I would like to first start with the agenda for part 1 and part 2. Part 2 will be recorded on September the 3rd, and today we'll be talking about the situation of knowledge transfer of ERP and process modeling at German universities shortly. So, and of course, the knowledge transfer target groups of universities today are not only academics, but also more and more non-academics like companies. So it's lifelong learning. So second, development of business and application model architecture for demo company Global Bike Incorporated, GBI, provided by SAP University Alliance, referencing enterprise layers. So the layers we saw before. The main idea, both application and business model architecture will be exemplified today by one of the very important companies in the world of knowledge transfer of SAP. This is GBI. If you are in the SAP arena, you might have heard of the IDES. IDES is the demo company of SAP Education. GBI is in the academic arena, but it's coming up, it's getting bigger and bigger. So integration of SAP Solution Manager is a big deal, and only a very few companies know the business blueprint feature of it. So this will be another important point in our presentation today. The implementation with ARIS Business Designer based on 6 enterprise layers, so the 6 enterprise layers Mark spoke about, and 4 levels of abstraction. So we will be talking not only about enterprise layers, but also we need to understand how we can manage the complexity. And this works with levels of abstraction. ARIS Business Designer has implemented fantastic features, but its architecture with the 4 views, most of you might know the 4 views of ARIS, is not, we will get back later to them. These 4 views are not capable of what our enterprise layer, which we are going to introduce today, can add value, not only to ARIS users, but to all tool users. Fifth point, I like to show the horizontal and vertical navigation through model examples of enterprise architecture components. So these enterprise layers and levels first give clear design rules for locating the 24 positions. It is 6 enterprise layers multiplied by 4 levels of abstraction. And between each of these positions, you can navigate horizontally and vertically, like inside a house. I hope this imagination helps to understand, but it has to be exemplified, which will be 50% of the presentation. But let me start with the situation of knowledge transfer at German University, which will only cover a few minutes. So we asked 190 universities in 2013 had a good response rate of 30%, and we tried to assign their answers to our BPM life cycle. Our BPM management, business process management life cycle, consists of 5 phases: strategic planning, process design, implementation, process execution, process controlling. So 90% of German universities teach ERP, focus process execution, this is phase 4, of SAP systems. More than 70%, we found out, of German universities teach process design, focus areas, and only less than 30% teach business process management lifecycle with SAP and areas, so from strategic planning to process controlling, like our Hochschule does. This is too less. What is the reason? Like in all academics companies, the academic world is full of silos and borders and restrictions. So normally each phase is assigned to one department and or one lecture, and they don't share a joint model of understanding. This has to be changed. I can tell you how difficult this was and still is, for example, at my university. The SAP University Alliance. Thank you for introducing me, Mark, and I'm proud to be member of the Global University Alliance, but I'm also member of the SAP University Alliance. And SAP University Alliance consists of about nearly 2,000 member institutions, 10,000 lecturers, and 350,000 students, which is a lot. In the Europe, Middle East, Africa region, in the Americas, and the Asia Pacific. Mainly SAP University Alliance with its six university competence center host the SAP systems and maintain additionally the transfer knowledge to and from the member institutions, and its lecturers and students. My university has been one of the first customers of the SAP University Competence Center in Magdeburg and has been involved in the arena of knowledge transfer for more than 20 years, or exactly 20 years. On the SAP UA Google map, you can see the focus on Europe, Middle East, Africa, 50%, followed by Americas, about nearly 25%, and Asia Pacific, another 25%, relating to the number of member institutions. Obviously, classes in Europe, Middle East, Africa are about half the size of classes in the Americas and smaller than in Asia Pacific. So if you have the time, you can zoom in and finally find my university. One of the main products for the transfer of knowledge are so-called SAP case studies. For most existing products like ERP, BI, or HANA, we're looking on sales and distribution, SD. My contribution in the integration is the integration of my business and application architecture models, trying to better transfer knowledge instead of only clicking through hundreds of pages of written exercises or case studies. And to give you an example, sales and distribution consists of about 46 pages, we see 2 of them, of text, screenshots, more than 1,000 lines, more than 5,000 words. Compared to this, the models used for these case studies have 15 screen models in the application layer on the deepest level, and 1 BPMN per level upwards, so 3 in total on the business layer. So it's less paper, but it's more abstraction, more aggregation, and a new complexity for the transfer of information, of course, the students and all other users of enterprise architecture have to deal with. Here we can see our first model, which is a SCORE reference model. We can recognize the customers on the right and the suppliers on the left. The business processes at GBI fits to the SCORE reference model. They consist of sourcing, making, and delivering of bikes, following a plan, the objective of the company on the top. Get back to the objectives later. The business processes at the moment are managed by SAP ERP application on the bottom, like material management, production planning, sales and distribution. Internal or external accounts payable, accounts receivable, and internal accounting, and of course human capital management. Now we get back to the slide we saw a couple of minutes earlier. So here's the business process, the supply chain, and the green one. And if we extend the business process and the application layer, orange, we saw before, we can imagine 6 more layers and assign them to enterprise views at GBI. So we spoke about them already, and the focus of this presentation, I would like to make sure at this point, the focus of this presentation will be the upper 6 layers, from purpose and goal to data. So the entire business layer and the entire application layer.
I think also that that's what makes this so unique, the ability to see how will modeling the business aspects, meaning the business architecture, touch also aspects of not only value aspects, business motivation aspects, competency, services or processes, but how does it affect information, the information systems? Why? When we talked with all the executives, they said, well, why do we want to have business architecture? Because we want a better link between aspects of what we model in the business and how it fits to the rest of the enterprise architecture. So I really like what Hans here is saying. The link between the top of 4 layers, which is business, must interlink to aspects of the information. If not, there is not a link to the rest of the architecture disciplines.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. This is so true what you just said. This is normally it is not common to combine all these aspects in only one unique model. And to say that this at this moment we made it. But I would like to go there step by step. But first, we had some challenges to master. So one of the challenge was, if we have a closer look at the blue process layer, we can imagine, we can see them here, enterprise meta objects like process area, process group, business process step, and so on. And we can also imagine relationships between them. So business process consists of process step consists of activity. An activity is connected to an event might be connected to a process measurement. So I would like to differentiate already at this moment that we have to distinguish between the same level of abstraction, and this is the horizontal navigation, and between different level of abstraction, which is the vertical navigation. And we can see that these levels might also exist in other blue and yellow layers. So how many layers do we have overall to be applicable, and how can we harmonize and manage them? So my idea was to organize the 6 layers, the blue 4 and the 2 orange one, side by side, and leave out the technology layer at the moment, and we learned from Mark that they are not so important. What we can see as an, I call it enterprise matrix icon, shortcut maybe EMI, enterprise matrix icon on the top on the right from now on. And there's a question mark on the deepest layer, deepest level, since I still didn't know how many levels of abstraction we needed for a practical application of SAP. I thought of the Aris house of business engineering and found our 6 layers and perhaps 4 levels of abstraction, so-called matrix. And I saw that there might be similarities with the Aris house of business engineering. Yes, we can see this is a view, this is a view, this is a view, and the data view also exists in Aris. But 2 layers are missing. The application layer and the value layer is missing. So we might find a very useful extension of the Aris house of business engineering already at the moment. But the question still is, how many levels do we have? So the next slide is a way to answer this question. So we kind of extended the Aris architecture and at the same time created the entire business and application layer within Aris. Of course, we used Aris. Next idea was to find the correct amount of levels, was to integrate the SAP Solution Manager, which is a strongly upcoming IT management tool. So we really made it, and the application layer of the Aris box on the left is entirely synchronized with the business blueprint of the Solution Manager on the right. That means the application layer now exists 2 times, one on the Aris platform and one on the SAP Solution Manager platform, which could be rolled out to subsidiaries of GBI, which is one of the nice concepts of SAP Solution Manager. So the idea of the business blueprint is application layer model-based customizing and development of its connected applications like SAP ERP, hopefully HANA in the future, and no non-SAP systems. We will find out later, and there is also a paper 2 years ago, that only a small fraction is possible today for the synchronization and the transfer finally to the SAP system, but it's close to 50%, which really makes sense to continue working on it. So it's a good concept with a huge potential for the future. And in part 2 of my presentation, I would like to focus on this. But what's very important for us was the fact that the synchronized application layer in the SAP Solution Manager consists of exact 3 layers in version 7.1. This is version 7.1. And with a 7.2, the next version of SAP, which comes up after 2 years of innovation, so 7.2 offers more levels on top, what doesn't influence the meaning of this slide. So which is referencing 7.1. We can see relegated line diagrams on level 1 and level 2. This is a business scenario level. This is a business process level. And NEPC on level 3, BPMN is of course possible as well. And we get back to BPMN later. And but that's all. The assigned transaction codes on the right in the Explorer structure with the green hook appear as another level, but they are not covered in the SAP Solution Manager. So the SAP Solution Manager Business Blueprint does not cover the content of the next deepest level, where we could see the input and output fields and its related key, respectively foreign keys of the transaction screens, which are very, very important for the better definition of the details. And mainly we will see it is so important for the measurement. So
I think also why, if I could add, Hans, I think why this slide is of such importance is this shows how it goes from models of understanding, which we see on the left, where you have a process diagram, how it's related together, how it relates to models of execution. In this case, where you literally can upload it in Solution Manager. So it's both that there is a relationship between not only scenarios, the processors, and aspects of how it relates to informations, products, business objects like information objects, data objects, and multiple others. There is a connections between aspects of scenarios done in models of understanding to scenarios how you actually execute it. This is not only where it says, well, yeah, it's all nice and good because it's conceptual models. Until you execute it, there's a long way down the road. These models today are so advanced that you can go from models of understanding to models of execution. In this case, this is important for us. Why? Business architecture defines many and interconnects many of these models of understanding. In this case, shown by Professor Scheruhn, rightfully in a process model related to aspects of how the information models will be executed. So he's showing here an important connections between business layer aspects and information layer aspects that cannot be disregarded anymore by practice. Why? Not only in theory, but by practice, these are interrelated, which is undoubtedly proven also by these concepts that Professor Scheruhn is going through.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I absolutely agree, and it's a good concept what we can see in the SAP Solution Manager. This is what I also heard from your saying, and but again, we have to ask a question: do we only need 3 levels of abstraction provided by the SAP Solution Manager, or again, like we did with ARIS, do we have to extend an existing tool like the SAP Solution Manager with a forced level? So this brings us to the next slide. So if we compare the SAP application layer of the SAP Solution Manager 7.1 with other layers like the leading practice, APQC, or SCORE, we get the following picture. We have different number of levels. So APQC we have 5, in SCORE we have 4, in LEAD we have 6 or even more. We have levels within levels. We have same names for meter objects on different levels. And on the deepest level, level 4 score and level 5 of APQC, the process models are not in scope. So finally, we decided to cut 2 levels on top of the SAP Solution Manager, since they don't exist. They will exist in the future, so it's easy to extend on top later, like SAP does now with version 7.2. So actually they are adding levels on top, but we decided to extend now, not later, on the bottom, to go even 1 level deeper than SAP Solution Manager does today. So we are here. Now we are here, and with version 7.2, the SAP Solution Manager will not cover the deepest level. It still will stop here, and we have to say at this moment, it's very, very important to cover 1 level more. So we can put these fragment here, which yeah, what can I say? Yeah, the process measure happens on the deepest level, where the screen attributes appear. This is what I mentioned earlier. Of course, they need to be aggregated later over several levels. So to give you an example, the KPIs of APQC are located on level 2 of the SAP Solution Manager. So actually it's level 4, but in our new level architecture, it will be level 2. So they have to be aggregated, and the level 5 of APQC is not in focus. So perhaps it's possible with our 4-level architecture, so there's a 4 and the quotation mark, to cover not only the process measure, but also the measurement of the other layers, yeah, like business compliance, like service level agreements, PPIs, like application performance, like data performance, and yeah, the 2 arrows indicate that we found the heart, the core of our enterprise architecture, the process and the application layer with its 4 level of abstraction. Again, the SAP Solution Manager covers only 3 of them. So we made it to create all the enterprise layer models within the Ares Business Designer. So the entire enterprise matrix icon is white. That means we covered all layers and all levels. This model offers a different access point. So via the enterprise layer itself, so you can like start from points of this matrix, or by the business layer, which we called GBI curriculum, since it's connected to the GBI company. And on the topmost level, you find the name of the SAP ERP case studies, which are normally located to departments of an existing company as well. So this should not have to say this at this moment. It's not applicable in the academic arena, but I'm very sure that this model, this concept, this architecture cannot only be used in academic, but also in the non-academic arena. So controlling, human capital management, materials management, sales and distribution, HANA, mobile platform, business intelligence. So, and in each of these case studies, we can recognize the 4 levels, which we call core, overview, detail, and document level. They are exactly the 4 levels we see here. And yeah, the navigation tree on the left normally is the #1 tool for locating the models of average users all over the world, which is often confusing and overwhelming for them. It's like always seeing the entire matrix in white. But our matrix tries to avoid this. Every existing model is assigned to 1 or more, if the model covers more than 1 level, which is typical, boxes of the matrix by highlighting only this area in white. We will see this later. And if you start navigating horizontally or vertically within the model, and this is possible without the navigation tree, the boxes change and will always indicate the position of the related model and will help the model user for better orientation. This is the enterprise framework, which is another pretty complex slide, and after this we will jump into model examples. And yeah, are there any questions so far? If not, I will continue. Finally,
we have not had any so far on the line, and I think so far this is very clear. You are right now, just for those who are with a more OMG background and modeling background, what we see here very nicely is what Professor Scheruhn has put together, saying at different levels, what is it we see for artifacts and what kind of meta objects would be found within them. So mostly at this level, it is the artifact view showing, for example, in value, the organizations we asked, they said they used a balance scorecard to define aspects of their value drivers and where they go. They use an objective diagram. They use aspects of a KPI allocation diagram, meaning which KPI do they use where. In organizational concepts, they use the organizational chart, which that's not a big surprise to anybody because that's what they use. They use business vocabularies to define their specific competencies. They use an accountability model, meaning by strategic, tactical, and operational tiers, what they do. And also in organizational relations of competencies, they use KPI allocations. So as an example, we see here very good, what is it the organizations do? How is it they organize? In processes, we see very good described. They use for the most the BPM process diagrams, the collaboration diagrams, but we also see some still doing e-business scenario diagrams. And they still, some organizations we saw, they use KPI allocation diagrams to say, well, we have a process, but we more govern it through performance management, meaning KPIs, which is by the 4th layer, which is a very good example here of how organizations are using various artifacts to model their organizations. So I think for the most, they would be able to understand this. In this case, this is nothing that was made up. This is something based on research and actual models used in the market. It's Professor Scheruhn, and in this case, the Global University Alliance, that has put this together of how is it that we saw this relating in terms by practice. So that's just to give a little bit background and explanations of the details we see. So just proceed, Professor Scheruhn. I think this is at this level where we would like to have it, where we have the ASSO status of the frameworks of what we saw organizations using around both business and information models.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And as you said, and we tried to cover all these models that exist today and that are used as a fraction. And so we tried to put together all the models needed, and sometimes we even doubled the information when we use different model types because they might be more common, they might be more useful in a specific company. So normally you should be able to find each of the model you are actually using, and you can try to assign the model you are using. By the way, we identified 20 different model types. You can identify it. You can try to assign it to the level. This is the company level, this is the department level, this is the employee level. And you can try to find the balance scorecards, the org charts, the services, and yeah, make the most of it. But we did not only want to talk about it, we wanted to show model examples, and they are even online. So if we click on the blue links, we directly jump into the model, and in the model, by the way, we always see our matrix, which indicates where we are. I wanted just to add a few things. Already Mark covered very well the entire matrix. We saw on the application layer, which should be more or less the SAP Solution Manager, a value-added chain diagram. That was when Mark mentioned the models of thinking. Value-added chain diagram on level 1 and on level 2. There are more models we are not going to talk about today since we don't have the time, but we find the EPC on level 3. And we find entity relationship models on the data layer on level 3. We find information engineering, what we need for HANA. So HANA comes in the next presentation, the to-be status. So this is not blue highlighted. We see the organizational chart. This is the SAP system organizational units. And we see the document flow. And on the deepest level, we see the screen diagram. So this is the mostly used diagram which describes what's going on the SAP case study today. So, and of course, more information are needed, but let's say 90% what the information is today of the case studies on the 46 pages of sales and distribution, for example, happens here. And our models really helped to integrate the case studies and to not only stay on the bottom on level 4, but to be always able to get up and look around and see what is going on. What are, for example, the company goals, not only the department goals or the goals of the employees. So yeah, I think we could spend hours with these models, and we don't have the time. And I think our audience is glad we get to the next slide, which is a diagram of the strategic objectives at GBI. Sorry, of the to-be status. We can see here are covered level 1 and level 2. So the achieve economic corporate objectives, and and on level 2, the department level, obviously most departments pursue objectives of cost centers. Like this is the idea of the global bike incorporated demo companies. So decrease purchase order costs, decrease production costs, and so on. And we have, of course, increased turnover, expand market growth, the strategic objectives. And for reporting the corresponding supply chain, we need material management processes, production planning processes, and sales and distribution processes. So now we navigate horizontally on level 1 to the process. Here we are, process level 1, and here we find the main processes: material management, production planning, sales and distribution, for supporting the main scenario processes. Here displayed as collapsed BPMN tasks. You can see, you can expand them. We are on level 1, and of course we would like to go one level deeper. Then let's go, and as indicated here, now we are on level 2, and again we see a BPM process diagram on the overview level, and obviously the GBI company consists of at least 3 departments: sales, Miami plant, and financial department, displayed as 3 sublanes within the GBI company lane or pool. Sorry, I haven't turned around by 90 degrees the names of the lanes. If we expand the collapsed processes, like create new customer, create sales order, referencing a quotation, or check stock status, which happens in the Miami plant, we again navigate vertically one level deeper, and here we are, which again is indicated in the matrix. We can see a BPMN collaborative diagram, and we can see that in the Global Bike Incorporated level 1, sales level 2, then level 3, East representative, Miami salesperson, salesperson 2, so 2 positions are involved. So there are external message flows between the customer black box and the different positions of the employees at GBI. And the employees also exchange SAP documents like customer inquiry, customer quotation, sales order, and but they are internal and external documents. So if you want to recognize the problem which with breaks in media, which possibly might occur once an external document is received, we have to go one level deeper. But before we do this, or we could go to we could stay in this level. We can see here the competency of the organization on 3 levels. We see the salesperson, the East representative. We see the sales department. We see the global buy. So we see these 3 levels are copies of the BPMN lanes or pools, which is very interesting. But I wanted to say I'd like to stay on level 3 on the process BPMN and now go to the application layer on level 3. And so how to navigate horizontally? We can do this by 4 ways. We can navigate by using intermediate events. They are indicated with magenta colored frames. We see them in the EPC. We see them here. We can navigate via data objects. They have a black colored frame, by tasks or activities. They are green, or which I just showed you, that the organizational resources like positions or departments or roles are also a copy of the lane. So it's directly connected, so it's entirely integrated. So there are four ways you have to navigate horizontally from an EPC to an BPMN model, or to go back. So BPC, this is, I know this is not an open standard, this is not OMG standard, but I found that many companies still use the EPCs, and in this case they show extra information. So the EPC additionally assigned is to data entities and SAP system organizational units at GBI. And but I will show how we can find a good solution to integrate these SAP system org units and these SAP entity types within BPMN models, which I would like to show in the next presentation, which will take place in September. So, so it is a very nice solution, and I would really like to discuss it with the audience. And I think it would really help to better understand with BPMN how, if the people work with SAP, the system organizational units are assigned. And perhaps it is not necessary in the future to use these EPCs, because we fully integrated this information to BPMN. But this is future stuff. Sorry for talking about presentation 2. We still wanted to go one level deeper, and we are on level 3 of the application. The BPMN also was on level 3, and if we want to go one level deeper, we could use a sales document, which is representation of the data, or we could use a screen. And if we go one level deeper from a screen, we get to a screen diagram. And this is one of 15 screen models of sales and distribution. So we see one of it. So it covers level 3 and level 4. Why? Because the screen itself is located on level 3. And the keys and foreign keys and describing attributes of the screen are located on level 4. So these 15 screen models cover 46 pages of case study text of SAP University Alliance for Sales and Distribution, with 2,000, now with over 1,000 lines, nearly 2,000. We can see eight of these lines, and we can also see hard copies. And you can see that order type, sales organization, distribution, all these information from the screen copies we can find here, and we have more information. We have more information than we see here. We can see this is foreign key. This is indicate that a pull down menu will pop up, and if it comes to purchase order date or required delivery date, we can fill in dates, and finally we get sales order number, which is the foreign key. And the great news that which was a lot of work, but we covered more than 350 keys and foreign keys, and thereby enable the model user to navigate horizontally via key foreign key relationships. For example, the sales order number is related to delivery as a foreign key, or to incoming payment. So incoming payment also is related to, or can be related to, sales order number. So and yeah, what is also a very good example at this point, if we want to measure the process performance, we need, for example, the time. And the time is related to the purchase order date, to the required delivery date, and of course to other dates. But this is for sure one of the very important reasons that we directly can connect the level 4, which is missing in the SAP Solution Manager so far, to the other layers for measuring the service level agreements, the process performance, and so on. Yeah. Any questions so far?
I think it's good what you presented so far. I think we can just proceed with what we have. What I like about the whole thing is the proof of, we wanted to focus in this time, how do the informations relate to both processes? How is the information outside? And I like how you are presenting or saying, how do now the organizational charts need to be reflected even in processes? How is it that
Yes.
documentations of objects, business objects, aspects of real life business objects, how all of this information or measurements, how all of this information is needed in a simplistic solution today. Organizations can't set up advanced information systems, and this doesn't, we are showing it on the example of SAP, but the same setup is needed for Oracle or software AG solutions, which we also are representing in here. I think it is important to understand today that what we're trying to bring forward is business architecture must be considered in nearly all aspects. It doesn't matter if I'm modeling decision management systems, decision modeling, or if I'm doing case management systems, process management systems, or if I'm setting up service models in an organization. All these things today must consider a certain complexity of business architecture decisions and integration thereby by certain meta objects, which I think Professor Scheruhn nicely again and again goes through detailed and says, unless you have this, then you are missing certain aspects, which again then doesn't enable a fully integrated view. So far I like what we have, and let's just proceed of where we are.
Wonderful. If we stay on level 3, here it comes, and we can see the complete SAP document flow for XD, for example, from customer inquiry to goods issue, customer invoice, customer payment. And some external documents are also displayed, like the external sales order, to better identify possible breaks in media with the internal SAP sales order document. Again, to really understand the problem we might have, we need to go one layer deeper, as we did before, to the so-called document level. Okay, and the next slide shows how some of the SAP documents are relevant for accounting. So even this is covered here on the competency level 3. And so after goods issue, the posting adds an inventory. Here it comes, credit account happens. So the customer invoice is processed as debit of accounts receivable, and so on. So and of course we could navigate via the bank account and look when the credit comes into the play during purchasing. So again, there is horizontal navigation possible, and if we want to see the details, we could go vertically one layer deeper, of course. So another important model Mark mentioned already on the competency layer still on the level 3, which is the most important level. With the business vocabulary, which enables a joint language between application and business departments at GBI or at other companies. And of course, it's competency related. So we see the meta objects of the application layer, entity types like the blue customer master on the left, and business terms like accounts receivable, business partner, prospective, and so on the right. And of course, we again could navigate from the model vertically or horizontally, and by this always have the synonyms of GBI on hand. It is so important.
If I can add here, Hans,
yeah.
This is specifically for OMG so important, who has just released the SBVR, which we all know, the semantics of business vocabulary. They have argued for years of how important it is to have consistent vocabulary and to be able to model and relate them. In this case, Professor Hans-Jürgen, based on the research we also did at the Global University Alliance, we heard every organization saying we need to map this vocabulary into aspects of how we're using it, meaning in the context of its meta objects, meaning material, trading goods, raw material, the services, the products, the business partners, etc., etc., etc. So this is a very, very important interlink, which we see now how does BPMN, SBVR, case management, aspects of VDML fit together. I think this is very nicely represented how Professor Scheruhn is showing the need for the organization seeing these artifacts jointly and documented. So sorry for interrupting you. I just felt this was very important, specifically around OMG.
Yeah, this is good. There's things OMG sometimes uses different wording for the same things, and I'm so glad that all of the work we are looking at is directly related to OMG concepts and model types. And thank you for reminding me on this fact. And on the next slide, we look on. I think this is not an OMG concept. This is an entity relationship model by Chen, but the entire data model, enterprise data model, which was a little bit outdated now, more and more comes in the focus of the company. Of course, is also integrated into our one single model, enterprise model. We see the customer master. We just looked at the synonyms for it. Now we see that the customer master can create several sales order. Hopefully, if not, if only 0, here's a prospective. So it's the explanation we find in the business vocabulary. And we see outbound delivery. So we have part delivery, and it's we have collective orders. So this I was just looking for the correct business terms in SAP. I should have looked at the business vocabulary to better find this. Yeah, I think we don't have to focus that much on basics of entity relationship modeling by Chen. But it's covered. It is covered, and the SAP structured entity relationship model consists of more than 10,000 entity types. And yes, sorry, we are dealing with SAP at the moment. But and you mentioned Oracle and other enterprise resource planning tools. Of course, the idea is that this model types, this model structure, is 100% applicable for other ERP system and for other companies, since we deal with OMG standards or with standards by Chen or with industry standards like EPC, And the only idea is to give a good example, and we selected, we choose the SAP and the ARIS area because so many companies around the world have to master the challenges in this arena, and I think we found a good example. And of course, at a certain point, we had to focus on a system like SAP Solution Manager, like SAP ERP, BI, HANA, or the ARIS tool to find a good example to really show the audience that these are not only theoretical models, but no, they are applicable in real world. And so HANA, let's stay in level 3 within the data layer. And that's also level 4. Why? Because in HANA, it is so important to think of column store. And obviously, we are looking at a BI concept. So far, HANA is used mostly for business intelligence with extraction, transfer load from OLTP systems to OLAP system. This means 2 different systems exist, which leads to inconsistencies and time gaps, of course. S for HANA, simple for HANA, the new SAP ERP, is said to be the integration of OLTP and OLAP. So the HANA data analytical views here is arranged as a star scheme with 2 dimensions. These are the 2 dimensions, and 2 foreign keys. Sorry, so we see the customer number, and here there's a key, foreign key. We see the material number, key, foreign key. Actually, it is the number 1 case study of SAP UA used for SAP UA HANA. And what I want to say is the customer master and the material master are the same entity types as in the previous ERM, and therefore again connected via horizontal navigation, because in the future we will not have separated BI and transactional systems, but they will be connected, and this really helps to save time. And here we can, very, very simple idea that of course we continue working with existing entity relationship models and with the same attributes, but of course in HANA they have to be stored in column stores. So I think it's not the truth what all happens with HANA, but I think it really covers the main aspects of what the companies have to have in mind when they think of HANA and when they think of possible future aspects, how even ERP system can be supported by HANA, and not only like today that they make the usage of BI faster. Yeah, we have a nice blog which more than 10,000, no, not more, but nearly 10,000 users. So it's growing so fast, and so this blog starts with the sustainable enterprise balance scorecard value layer level 1, and so there's a link how to get to the blog, and but it's we'll be focusing on the level concept of the value layer in the next presentation. And today I just wanted to give a conclusion and an outlook. So when we found these 2 layers and we applied these 2 layers, the business and the application, we derived these 6 sub layers, and finally we identified 38 meta objects, which is part 2 a little bit. But today we saw these 4 meta object levels: core, overview, detailed, document. We see them here. We also work with 3 object tiers: strategic, tactical, operational, which will be also a focus of part 2. And we work with main and supporting. So this is so far the SAP UA case studies focus the main and supporting processes. So the innovation was, again, what Mark mentioned. We not only show the organizational structure within an organization and chart, no, we also show the integration of the 3 organizational levels within BPMN lanes, like we did with variated chain diagrams. And so we found a good concept which other companies could copy, how to get from BPMN level 1 to BPMN level 2 and BPMN on level 3. We saw the integration of SAP and non-SAP document flow. We saw the financial accounting aspect on level 3. Yeah, but the most important aspect was BPMN, EPC, ERP, and SAP screen on 4 levels of abstraction. And last but not least, we saw the SAP HANA view integration on level 4. We have not covered the technology layer, and we will also not speak about this technology layer in this second presentation, but we are working on this. And but this is what I also wanted to say, that we have a really fast-growing user community at the SAP University Alliance, especially in the arena and in the enterprise layer modeling arena. And I can see this from the very fast, exponentially growing visits on my blog, so that I was asked to give a presentation at the SAP Academic Conference of Europe, Middle East, and Africa on September the 10th in Waldorf. So this is a very last slide. Possible benefits of applied enterprise framework for OMG.
If I could maybe add something, if
yeah, please, so.
One slide, Hans. If we go back one slide, one of the powers I think that is very important that we can conclude, and is one of the reasons we invited Professor Scheruhn to share this with us. So besides that, we have 350,000 users in the world using such a case, learning based on this, all hosted in Magdeburg University, with a colleague that Hans and myself are working very closely together. This is used as a showcase by SAP worldwide. So this is practical use. This is not something that is, well, does it really work? How does it work? We asked Professor Scheruhn to share this in detail of what is important when integrating aspects of business architecture from the business layer to the information layers, meaning the application layers. Which concepts are important? We asked him in this case of, could you please show it? What would I need today in process models in order to actually really integrate them to information models? I mean, doing software codes and other aspects, that's again other challenges. That's not what we asked here. Which concepts are needed in terms of scorecards, organizational design, concepts from KPIs, rules, decision making? What about for scenarios? What about thinking about value? What about when we have to think about services? I liked how Professor Scheruhn went slowly through to say, thinking of it as an integrated layer of organizations, because organizations don't work in the way when I say we in OMG, or we as you organizations, model it individually in terms of just processes or just services. Well, there, it's a person who has a function to do, that in their functions they have activities which are in their process. Their functions and their activities create services. These services have a value to provide. They don't separate it, the modeling disciplines, like we do. Well, rightfully they don't, because they work in it in practice. And rightfully we separate it in order to model it individually. I like how Professor Scheruhn has tried to share with us how this integrated view fits together, how it's important, how various standards and industry standards, and I like how Professor Scheruhn both shared EPC's event-driven process chains, value chain aspects, BPMN diagrams, aspects of organizational charts, also concepts of value or scorecards. I liked how this was going together. Why did we want that? Because let's face it, this is what organizations do. They don't only face it on one model. They actually prefer to have all of it integrated. So my perspective into this is I enjoyed seeing this. I also enjoyed to actually see it under understanding of an SAP application, even though this principle also applies to non-SAP users. This was only to prove it, which I think Professor Scheruhn would agree with. This applies to both, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is, in this case, it was demoed in order only to show the applicability between them. So let's wrap some of your closing words up, and then I have some words again to our community. So I give over to you,
Okay.
Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to conclude the benefits of applied enterprise framework for OMG. Yeah, it's an integrated enterprise reference enterprise layer model with open and industry standards exemplified by the demo company GBI, integrating SAP application and non-SAP application. But it's a great deal, and most of the companies won't do it today. That is to integrate the SAP Solution Manager with ERP, with BI and HANA. But it's completely integrated in the model we spoke about. So it's like a virtual SAP system which covers all in one model and which is available online for the 350,000 students in the SAP University Alliance. So it's a huge knowledge transfer example for integration of OMG standards like UML and BPMN. Sorry, I didn't mention the other standards Mark mentioned earlier. Data modeling standards like entity relationship model and information engineering, that was the HANA. Industry standards like EPC. So it's the biggest existing demo example for integrating models of understanding of OMG and models of execution, SAP. And so it stands for model-based knowledge transfer and understanding of SAP and non-SAP applications for better mastering SAP challenges. And I'm truly convinced by this. Yeah, thank you.
It is us who say thank you, Professor Scheruhn, to share this knowledge of how are certain objects within business architecture related together to do advanced modeling. This was the first sessions of many, the first session of 2 that Professor Scheruhn will do. In addition to that, please visit the page again where we will upload this, where you will see the second session of Professor Scheruhn, where we will go to the next step, where we will take more aspects of scorecards, value aspects, value modeling into information modeling. So it will integrate their value modeling with process modeling, service modeling, as well as information modeling and data modeling, all again shown on the example in order to make it practical, also to proof point it. We see many organizations or specifically modelers saying, yeah, but that does not work in practice. Hence, we asked Professor Scheruhn to show it literally on practical examples that works and also used around the world. So we are looking forward to the next session, which we will have about in 2 months, which we will then upload again. So thank you very much, and goodbye.